They forced her to stand in the center of the stage. Bright, white lights burned above her head. Hundreds of faces stared at her from the dark hall. Parents, teachers, students, phones raised, cameras recording. Amina's hands trembled at her sides. "Remove it," the host said into the microphone, his voice echoing across the walls. "This is a neutral school. Religious symbols are not allowed on this stage." The hall went silent. Her hijab felt heavier than ever. She was only 16. Her name had just been called for the National Excellence Award. She had worked for it for years. Long nights, quiet tears, whispered du'a before every exam. And now they were telling her to choose. The principal leaned closer, speaking through a tight smile. "Take it off, Amina, just for the ceremony, or we give the award to someone else." A murmur spread through the crowd. Someone laughed. Someone whispered, "It's just a scarf." Her father sat in the third row. His jaw tightened. Her mother's fingers clutched her tasbih so hard it left marks in her palm. The microphone was pushed toward Amina. "Well," the host pressed. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought everyone could hear it. She closed her eyes for 1 second. And then she did something no one in that hall expected. But before you see what she chose, stay with this story. Some moments change a person forever. And some halls never forget what they witness. Amina had not always been the girl standing alone under blinding lights. She had grown up in a small apartment above her father's tailoring shop. The smell of fresh fabric and thread was part of her childhood. Her father, Yusuf, stitched clothes for neighbors and gave discounts to those who could not afford much. Her mother, Fatima, taught Quran to children in the evenings. Their home was small, but it was warm. There was laughter. There was prayer. There was peace. Amina was their only daughter. She had worn hijab since she was 11. No one forced her. She had watched her mother wrap hers every morning before far. She had seen the calm on her mother's face in sujud. One day, Amina had asked quietly, "Can I wear it too?" Her mother did not answer right away. She only smiled and hugged her. From that day, the scarf became part of Amina's identity. Not heavy, not forced. It felt like belonging. At school, she was known as the quiet one, the smart one, the one teachers relied on to lead group projects. She helped classmates with math. She stayed after school to tutor younger students for free. She never argued, never shouted, never caused trouble. When the announcement came that she had the highest grades in the entire district, the whole Muslim community celebrated. The imam mentioned her name after Jumu'ah. Elderly women made du'a for her success. Her father cried silently that night when he thought no one was looking. "This is Allah's gift," he whispered. The school planned a grand award ceremony. Media would attend. Sponsors would attend. It would be broadcast online. Amina prepared a short thank you speech. She practiced in front of the mirror. She mentioned her parents. She mentioned her teachers. She planned to end with gratitude to Allah. 2 days before the ceremony, something changed. A new circular was sent to all award recipients. It stated, "No visible religious symbols allowed on stage to maintain neutrality." Her father read the message 3 times. "It must be a mistake," he said. Amina felt a strange chill. At school the next day, she approached the principal respectfully. "Sir, I have worn my hijab for 5 years. It is part of me." The principal smiled politely. "It's not personal, Amina. It's policy." "But others wear crosses," she said softly. "That is different." She did not argue further. That evening, she sat on her prayer mat long after Maghrib. Her mother watched her from the doorway. "You can choose, my daughter," Fatima said gently. "We will support you." Amina's voice trembled. "If I remove it for them, will it still be for Allah?" No one answered that question. The day of the ceremony arrived. The hall was decorated with gold banners and bright flowers. Students wore expensive dresses and suits. Cameras flashed. Amina wore a simple cream dress. Her hijab matched perfectly. She looked calm on the outside. Inside, a storm. Her name was announced last. Top student of the year, Amina Yusuf. The crowd applauded loudly. She walked toward the stage slowly. Halfway up the steps, a staff member blocked her path. "Remember the rule," he whispered. She continued walking. The host forced a smile as she reached center stage. And then the microphone captured every word that followed. "You cannot receive this award unless you remove the hijab." Gasps filled the hall. Amina looked at the audience. She saw some teachers avoiding her eyes. She saw classmates recording. She saw her father stand up halfway, then sit back down, unsure. The spotlight burned her face. Seconds felt like hours. The principal stepped closer. "We don't want to embarrass you," he whispered. "Just take it off quickly." Embarrass her? The humiliation was already complete. Someone from the back shouted, "Just do it." Another voice said, "It's not that serious." Her mother's lips moved in silent duet. Amina's fingers touched the edge of her scarf. The hall leaned forward as one. And then she reached for the microphone instead. Her voice was soft, almost shaking. "If my success requires me to remove what reminds me of my Lord," she said, "then maybe this award was never meant for me." The room froze. The host's smile disappeared. The principal's face turned red. And before anyone could react, the award certificate was taken from the table, and the host announced loudly, "The award will now go to the runner-up." Thunderous applause filled the hall. Not for her, for someone else. Amina stood there, empty-handed, still wearing her hijab, as the crowd celebrated her replacement. And that was only the beginning. The applause felt louder than thunder. Amina could not hear her own breathing. The runner-up walked past her with wide eyes, holding the certificate like something fragile. The cameras followed him. The crowd cheered. The host laughed as if nothing painful had just happened. Amina was still standing under the light, still alone, still wearing her hijab. The principal leaned close and whispered, "You made your choice." Her father stood up fully this time. His hands were shaking, but he did not shout. He did not create a scene. He only walked slowly toward the exit. Her mother followed, tears falling silently down her face. Amina stepped down from the stage without looking at anyone. Some students moved out of her way as if she carried something contagious. Others kept recording, their phone screens glowing in the dark. Someone muttered, "She ruined her own future." Another said, "Why couldn't she just remove it for 5 minutes?" Outside the hall, the evening air was cold. Her father waited near the gate. His face looked older than it had that morning. "I am sorry, Baba," she said softly. He shook his head immediately. Never say sorry for obeying Allah. But his voice carried pain. That night, the video spread faster than anyone expected. Clips of her standing on stage. Clips of her refusing. Clips of the award being handed to someone else. The comment sections exploded. Some praised her courage. Many mocked her. She wanted attention. She thinks she's special. Religion has no place in school. By midnight, the school released an official statement online. It claimed that Amina had violated ceremony guidelines and disrupted the event. Disrupted? Her father read the statement again and again. The next morning, reporters gathered outside the tailoring shop. Microphones pushed forward. "Sir, does your daughter regret her decision? Will she apologize to school? Is this a political statement?" Yusuf closed the shop early that day. Inside their apartment, silence filled the rooms. Amina sat near the window, watching cars pass below. Her phone would not stop vibrating. Messages from classmates, from strangers, from people she did not know. Some messages were kind. Many were cruel. One message read, "You embarrassed all of us." Another said, "Enjoy being expelled." Expelled? Her heart tightened. By afternoon, an official email arrived. She was summoned to the school disciplinary board. The meeting would determine appropriate consequences for misconduct. Misconduct. Her mother prepared tea no one drank. At Maghrib, Amina stood in prayer longer than usual. Her sujud felt deeper. Her whispers were quiet, but steady. Oh, Allah, you see. The next day, she entered the school office not as a top student, but as an accused troublemaker. 3 board members sat across from her. The principal sat at the center. The atmosphere was cold. "You embarrass the institution," one member began. "You refuse a simple policy," said another. Amina folded her hands calmly in her lap. "I only refuse to remove my hijab," she answered. "You turned it into a spectacle," the principal snapped. Now the school is facing backlash. Backlash? The school had begun receiving emails from community members questioning the rule. Some local masjid leaders had written formal letters asking for clarification, but the board did not mention that part. Instead, they slid a document across the table, a written warning. If she signed it, the matter would be closed. No further action. If she refused, the case could escalate. Her father sat beside her quietly. "What does escalation mean?" he asked carefully. "It could affect her academic standing," the principal replied. "University recommendations. Scholarships." The word scholarships hit hard. Amina had earned a full academic scholarship offer from a prestigious university. Her entire future depended on her record staying clean. Her father looked at her. He did not tell her what to do. He only said, "Choose with peace in your heart." The room waited. The pen lay on the table. Amina picked it up. Her hand trembled. She read the document again. It stated that she voluntarily caused disruption and failed to comply with neutral policies. Neutral. She placed the pen back down. "I cannot sign something that says I was wrong," she said gently. The principal leaned back in his chair. "Very well." 3 days later, the decision came. She was suspended for 2 weeks for defiance and misconduct. The news spread even faster than the first video. This time, the comments were harsher. "See? Actions have consequences." She thinks she's a victim. Her classmates avoided her online. Group chats removed her name. Even some distant relatives called her father. "Why didn't you advise her to remove it just once?" Yusuf listened quietly. He did not argue, but the pressure grew heavier. One evening, as Amina walked home from the masjid after Isha, she noticed 2 girls from her school standing near the corner. They stared at her. As she passed, one of them whispered loudly, "Here comes the drama queen." The other laughed. Amina kept walking. Her steps did not change. But that night, when she closed her bedroom door, her shoulders finally shook. Not loudly, not violently, just enough to release what she had been holding inside. Her mother knocked gently. "You are strong," Fatima said, brushing her daughter's hair. "I don't feel strong," Amina whispered. Strength did not always feel loud. Sometimes it felt like silence. The following week, something unexpected happened. A legal notice arrived at their home. The school had filed a formal complaint accusing Amina of damaging the institution's reputation and causing financial loss due to sponsors withdrawing from the ceremony broadcast. Financial loss? The letter demanded that her family issue a public apology and retract her statement made on stage. If not, legal action would proceed. Her father read the letter twice. His tailoring shop barely covered rent. Court fees were impossible. Neighbors began whispering. Some avoided eye contact. Some said, "Why fight a system bigger than you?" That evening, as Yusuf locked his shop, 2 officials stood waiting outside. They handed him another document, a formal summons. He was required to appear before a civil court on behalf of his daughter. Failure to appear could result in penalties. Amina watched from the apartment window as her father stood under the streetlight reading the paper. His shoulders looked smaller than before. He folded the notice carefully. Above them, the sky was dark and wide. Inside the house, the phone rang again. This time, it was a university admissions office. Her scholarship offer was under review, pending investigation into her disciplinary record. Amina felt the ground beneath her shift. Not just her award, not just her reputation, now her future. And the court date was only 10 days away. The court building stood tall and cold. Amina walked beside her father, her steps steady but slow. The same scarf still covered her head, the same scarf that had caused so much noise. But something inside her had changed. The city had changed too. By the time the court date arrived, the video from the stage had traveled far beyond their town. It had reached different countries, different languages, different hearts. But the school's version had also spread. They said she was rebellious. They said she disrespected authority. They said she wanted attention. And now she stood at the center of it all. Inside the courtroom, the air felt heavy. Journalists filled the back seats. Community members whispered quietly. Some had come out of curiosity. Others came out of support. The principal sat across from her, with legal representatives beside him. Amina lowered her gaze. Her father squeezed her hand once. No long speeches. No dramatic scenes. Just waiting. When the hearing began, the school's lawyer spoke first. He described policy. He described neutrality. He described damage to institutional reputation. He repeated the word disruption several times. Then he said something that made the room shift. This student could have avoided all this by simply removing a piece of cloth for 5 minutes. A murmur spread. The judge turned toward Amina. "Do you wish to speak?" Her heart beat hard. This was not a stage with applause. This was not a ceremony with lights. This was smaller, quieter, more serious. She stood slowly. Her voice did not shake this time. "I studied hard for many years," she began gently. "I followed every school rule. I respected every teacher. The only thing I refused was removing something that reminds me of my faith." The room listened. I did not insult anyone. I did not shout. I did not attack. I only chose not to remove my hijab. Silence wrapped around her words. I did not mean to harm the school, but I also could not harm my relationship with my Lord. There was no anger in her tone, no blame, only truth, and something else. Peace. The judge leaned back. The hearing continued for hours. Policies were examined. Previous ceremonies were reviewed. Pictures surfaced of other students wearing visible religious symbols in past years without consequence. Whispers grew louder. By the end of the session, the judge announced a temporary suspension of the school's claim pending further investigation into selective enforcement of their own rules. The courtroom doors opened. Cameras flashed again. But this time, something was different. People were not laughing. They were watching with respect. Over the next days, more stories surfaced. A former student spoke out about being asked to hide her cross necklace. A Sikh family shared how their son had once been discouraged from wearing his turban at a sports event. The narrative shifted. The school's neutrality began to look uneven. Quietly, sponsors who had withdrawn from the ceremony did not return. Instead, new voices appeared. A well-known educational foundation released a public statement praising Amina's composure and integrity. A legal advocacy group offered to cover her court expenses. The university admissions office called again. This time, their tone was careful. After reviewing the situation, they confirmed her scholarship would remain intact. They stated her record showed no misconduct under broader constitutional protections. When her father hung up the phone, his hands trembled again, but not from fear, from relief. At school, something unexpected happened. Students who had once mocked her began approaching quietly. One girl stood beside her locker. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't understand." Another student said, "You were braver than I would have been." Amina did not smile proudly. She only nodded gently. Bravery did not feel loud. It felt heavy. The school board held an emergency meeting. Weeks later, a new policy was announced. Students would be allowed to wear religious attire at official ceremonies, provided it remained respectful and non-disruptive. No apology was publicly issued, but the change spoke loudly. Then came the most surprising moment of all. The district organized a second award ceremony. Smaller, quieter, without sponsors or cameras. They invited Amina again. This time, no conditions. She walked onto stage wearing the same cream dress, the same hijab, but this time no one stopped her. The hall was not as full. There were fewer decorations, yet the applause felt different. It was not loud and dramatic. It was steady, respectful. When the certificate was handed to her, the room remained silent. She approached the microphone once more. No anger, no bitterness. Success is not only about standing on a stage, she said softly. Sometimes it is about standing firm. Her father wiped his eyes openly. Her mother smiled through tears. She did not mention revenge. She did not mention pain. She did not criticize the school. She simply thanked her parents. She thanked her teachers. And she thanked Allah. The applause that followed was not explosive, but it was sincere. Outside the hall, a group of younger girls waited for her. One of them wore a hijab loosely pinned. She looked up at Amina with wide eyes. "I want to be like you," she said. Amina knelt slightly, so they were eye level. "Be better than me," she answered. That night, their small apartment felt warm again, not because of awards, not because of victory, but because dignity had remained untouched. Her father returned to his tailoring shop the next morning with a lighter heart. Customers greeted him differently. Neighbors nodded with quiet respect. The storm had not destroyed them. It had revealed them. Amina did not become famous for shouting. She did not become a heroine through anger. She became a symbol of calm strength, of sabr, of truth spoken without hatred, of dignity preserved under pressure. And in many homes across the world, families showed the clip of her courtroom statement to their children, not as entertainment, but as a reminder that Allah sees, that patience is never wasted, that standing firm can move systems without breaking hearts. If this story touched you, share it so others can reflect. Support stories that protect dignity and faith. Subscribe and spread it for the sake of Allah, so that more hearts remember that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it simply refuses to bow.